Afternoon, everyone. The Transportation and Commerce Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Ryan.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Chair Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. We have 4 present. We have a quorum.
Madam Clerk, I believe Alderwoman Spencer indicated to me that she was going to be calling in remotely. I don't know if she's on the line presently.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Alderwoman Spencer indicated to me that she might be calling in remotely this afternoon. So if you could keep your eye out for her on the virtual setting, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I was just informed that she said her LA said that she would be on her way.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. So we called this hearing today to get an update from Metro with respect to Caller Ride and then also the Green Line and other issues and whatnot from the committee. And we also have several organizations and members of the community here to testify as well, which here to also allow them the opportunity to speak on any of those matters and others as well. So we'll first have representatives from Metro come before the committee. And if you could introduce yourself. Okay. Happy to do so. But, well, we've.
So who's ever speaking, this has to go to that person too. So
Okay.
Mary can hear.
So,
Maybe you would sit a little closer to the mic if she can hear you a little better.
okay. Are you able? Okay, wonderful. And then one of the legislative assistants, if you could just make sure that this is transferred between microphones, that would be wonderful. I think we're starting. Yeah. Thank you, Caitlin. And then I just be mindful and bring the microphones closer so that everyone can hear. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Roach.
Caitlin, everyone, I hope everybody's good. So my name is Talby.
Your microphone, Mr. Roach. Yeah, there's a button on the microphone.
Press the button, look for a green
There we go.
light, right? Well done. So anyway, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Chairman, for having us. We're happy to come anytime this committee would like to talk about transportation in the St. Louis area. My name is Talby Roach. I'm the President and CEO of Bi-State Development. Among other things, we do run Metro Transit, which also includes Caller Ride. I have actually with me today my Chief Operating Officer, Chuck Stewart. Chuck is going to tell you a little bit about some of where our performance is to date, but I want to just acknowledge very quickly, we are on an arc of what I would like to call improvement. One of the things that we talked about specifically, even with this committee, roughly a year ago, was how can we improve fundamental Caller Ride and transit service. We believe we are on that arc. It is not perfect, and we are okay with hearing those critiques. Critiques are about how we get better. So I wanted to just start the meeting by acknowledging that fact, but we do have exciting numbers that we're happy to share with you today. Chuck, would you mind coming up? I think if you hold that, we'll be good on that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Fantastic. So as Talby said, I'm Chuck Stewart. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Metro Transit. I'm going to give you an update on our Caller Ride. Caller Ride is a complimentary paratransit service that runs along with our fixed route system, which is MetroBus and MetroLink. About a year ago, maybe April of 2023, we realized that Colorado was not fulfilling the promise. It was not fulfilling the promise to the disabled community to provide the kinds of service that that community is certainly deserving of. We had issues, we had challenges. Staffing was a challenge. We need approximately 200 operators to operate Colorado effectively. At that point, we were closer to the 100 mark, maybe a little lower. We had a unacceptable number of denials of service, people calling in, asking for a ride, and we were not able to provide that service. We had a telephone system that was not providing the service, the access to our reservation system that was required. We had a reservation system that was outdated. Frankly, you know, it's all about being able to coordinate service, and we were not doing that very well at that time. As a result of that, we cut back on our Colorado service. Colorado is designed to work within 3/4 miles of our fixed route system, which is bus and MetroLink. It had far exceeded that. We had branched out beyond our capabilities of providing good service. So we cut back. And with that, there came some pain to our ADA community. Although they were experiencing pain already as a result of the way we were operating at that time. Next slide, please. So this slide is an overview of our ADA denials. As I mentioned, denials were unacceptable. Back before we cut service, our denials were in the 40% of service being provided at that time, which is totally unacceptable. Almost half the people weren't getting the rides that they were expecting to get. And as this chart shows, this shows from a point back in February of 2023 to currently in May of 2024, we have reduced that denial rate to our average 10%, 12%. So we've significantly improved our record as it relates to service denials. Next slide, please. This next slide talks about weekly trips. We provide about 6,000 trips a week at this point. Back in February 2023, we were providing, that's providing meaning completed. People got the rides that they were expected. So we've improved our service as it relates to fulfilled services from 5,000 a week back in February 2023 to over 6,000 a week currently. So our provision of service is improving as well. So we've done quite a few things over that period of time in order to improve our service. Next slide, please. We hired a consultant. The ADA community suggested that we do so, and we were perfectly willing to do that. We needed outside help in determining what we needed to do to turn our service around. We hired a consultant. That consultant not only looked at Colorado, but they looked at all of our service. ADA service should be available on all modes of transportation, including MetroBus and MetroLink. So we got recommendations from our consultant. We are continuing to engage him. He did this overall view of all services based on ADA regulations and basically graded each service division as to whether they were in compliance or not. The key item that we were not in compliance with had to do with the denials of service. We have also, next slide, please. We've also changed the leadership at Colorado. We decided that in order to implement the kind of impactful change that we needed to make, that we needed new people. We needed new vision, we needed new direction, we needed new management. As a result of that, we have changed. We have a new general manager at Colorado, and we have a new acting assistant general manager. And they are both improving our service through training and direction and organization. We're looking at all of our systems in an effort to provide, again, the best service that we possibly can. We have a new labor contract with Local 788, which represents our Colorado operators. We have significantly improved the starting wage at Colorado. As I stated previously, one of our key issues was manpower. As a result of that, staffing levels are shown at the bottom. We currently have about 143 operators. We've probably added 10, 15 operators in the last month. We continue to hold monthly hiring events, which are focused now primarily on Colorado operators and on mechanics. You need mechanics to keep buses and vans going as well. We've been very successful with our bus operators. We've been able to raise the ranks of bus operators to the extent that we are starting to provide service, adding back service, primarily focusing on reliability and frequency, not expansion yet. Can't expand the system back until I can get Colorado in the position to do that as well. At our April hiring event, we made 50 offers for new Colorado operators. We had an event this past Saturday. We made another 77 offers. I have well over 150 people in the hopper in terms of preparing them to become Colorado operators. We need about 200 Colorado operators to effectively provide the service. My team has promised me that we'll make it to 150 by June, and we're going to make it to 180 by November. Toward the end of the year, we should be in full complement again in terms of Colorado operators. Next slide, please. All along the way, we have been partnering with the ADA community. We have asked them to participate in this process. We are holding open houses, and we are doing communicative type things to make sure that we get their feedback as we move forward. We want the system to work. We want it to work for the community. We've been sending out monthly progress updates. We have a customer advisory group that we are kind of revamping at this time. We are doing community engagement. We did open houses all during the month of April. We have events scheduled, 4 events, yes, before the end of this month that will include open houses and a virtual event. We have done a survey. We have reached out. We have asked for the opinion of the ADA community and others on going to single day scheduling, next day scheduling. We've received over 150 replies. We're analyzing those at this point, and we will be making a decision by the end of the month. We'll certainly communicate that decision, and we would be happy for the ADA community to help us to give additional feedback after you've made that decision, and let's all move forward with a system that is working. We have, next slide, please. We have upgraded our phone system to 1 degree already. We started a phone tree. We're trying to do whatever we can to make it easier to call in and make a reservation. We will be implementing a totally new system by the end of this month. We're looking at reservation and dispatching software. Our board approved at their last board meeting an option for us to get into a consortium so that we can have a better choice of providers going forward. We should have a contract for software upgrades or new software by June, and hopefully we will have everything in place by the end of the year. Again, as we start implementing portions of this software, we will ask the ADA community to participate, to give us feedback as we move forward. I talked already about the reservation system and the 150 comments we've received. So bottom line, we are improving. We are not there yet, as Mr. Roach said. We're working diligently to reach the promise to the ADA community to provide the services that they richly deserve, not only in Colorado, but all of our services. That concludes my presentation. I don't know if questions are in order now, or...
Hey, Caitlin, do you mind?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we do have two items. One is Colorado and one is the Green Line. And I know the second half of the presentation has to deal with the Metro Green Line expansion. But I think for the purposes of the meeting today, we'll just take the two items up separately and we'll go ahead and I'll ask if there are any questions from the committee based off of the presentation shared so far. And then if there are people who have registered to speak either in favor or opposition, well, I mean, technically we don't have any board bill pending before us, so we'll just go ahead and take feedback from members of the community that are present. And then I'll allow the committee to follow up. For those of you that have joined us, I would still encourage you to provide your name with the clerk so that she can call upon you, and that we'll recognize anyone that wishes to speak. We'll have the opportunity to do so. We are working on a limited schedule today. I only have an hour total for the committee hearing. I was just made aware yesterday, the committee hearing was scheduled last week, but at the time that the committee was scheduled, we did not have overtime budgets allowed for St. Louis TV, so trying to be mindful of those restrictions. And also, we have our budget committee hearing process going on at the same time. So time slot availability for committee hearings is a little sparse at the moment. So I do want to try and accommodate everyone that has been here. So we'll try to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. It would be very much appreciated. If you have not already, there's usually sign-in papers. I don't know where that would have come from because I never said anything of the sort, so. And in fact, the clerk was sent written comments for today as well, so. So I appreciate the flexibility of our clerk as we have folks sign in. And while you all are signing in, we'll go ahead and take questions from members of the committee. Vice Chair Spencer. There's a person in the audience with that's audio assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the update on Colorado. I'm very curious to hear from the members of the public who are here today before kind of weighing in further. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Cohn, and thank you for the presentation today. The last time we spoke about Metro staffing, about a year ago, I'd say, one of the big issues at that time that the union had brought up was assaults on Metro drivers. That there were ongoing assaults, particularly during the pandemic, and people were getting away from driving Metro or not as interested in beginning to drive for Metro, and that was really affecting the staffing levels and the morale of the staff. Do you have any indication right now if those are down, or is that still an ongoing issue? have there been any safety improvements made in the meantime to try and address any of those, to try and keep the staffing levels as high as we can?
So I can speak to that from.
Hold on for 1 second so I can pass this over to you.
She can hear. I don't.
Thank you.
I can speak to that from the standpoint of staffing. I'm not sure exactly when it was that you were talking to the union, but since over the past year, we have 3 new contracts with Local 788. I think we certainly recognize that there were issues that were causing us to have higher attrition levels than usual. I think we took care of a lot of those in the contract process because we have certainly been more successful recently in terms of not only attracting and retaining, but retaining existing staff members. So those things I think have worked. I think Mr. Roach would probably be better to approach the security question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just so 2 very important developments. One of the things that we started was with, we started a operator assault working group, which actually has members of 788 on that working group. And within that, we take video evidence associated with any of that. We kind of work through what are those issues, what are the things that we can do. And there's been significant progress with that. All of our current vehicles do have a plexiglass shield barrier that is movable, that was worked with our union partners. We did retrofit some of our older vehicles with a less rigorous version of that, but all of the new vehicles will have that. But it's a really, really important point, and one of the successful things about the new contract that actually Mr. Stewart deserves quite a bit of credit for is getting our union partners input into the very pieces of the contract that make a difference. And some of that has to do with support, both in mental health, and also Mr. Stewart and 788 have been instrumental in creating a mentor program through our union partners. They're very active right now and has been very helpful in taking these great folks with 20, 30 years who are able to have the normal de-escalation techniques, and can talk with their customers, who are all part of security. Just like a neighborhood, I like to think of transit as a moving neighborhood, and that kind of human interaction is a lot of times what can make things better. We've been working very hard at that, and the union partnership is a really key element.
Thank you.
And actually, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I wrote down many questions while you all were talking, and I'll only ask a few because I know we're short on time. I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about the denial numbers and what makes someone get denied, as well as, you know, I've heard from the community that it doesn't, I hear that you're collecting feedback on the next day reservation system, but it sounds like that's not what people happen from what I'm hearing is feedback. So I guess I'm interested in how those things overlap regarding denials, why someone's denied, and also why there is any thought from Metro that perhaps a next day reservation system would be beneficial to the customers it serves.
Absolutely. Chuck and I will handle that one. So ideally, the goal is actually to have not only a next day, but an advanced reservation, okay? We're not at the staffing level that we can support that right now. One of the key problems with advanced reservations is when we did an analysis of that, especially on a 5-day, what we had was the normal circumstance within people's everyday lives that there was a lot of cancellations. Cancellations by their very nature are inefficient, and our biggest point of scarcity is drivers. So we literally are out talking to people about this idea to see if there were a way to schedule that would cut down on that number and make those numbers a little more efficient, okay? It may not work, okay? I mean, or we may have this exact discussion and some people will, or the overwhelming majority of people may think that that doesn't work. But it is a mathematical way for us to try to deal with that scarcity. Is that a fair comment, Chuck? Okay. Denials typically are done strictly on capacity, whether it is capacity of vehicles or of operators. As you can see over the past 16 months, moving up our weekly capacity to nearly 6,500 a week. Chuck, you said 6. I'm going to go to the higher number, is great progress. And ideally, the goals are to have a hybrid reservation system that I think had both, and that we had 0 denials. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love if we were at 0 denials. We're on our path to it, and we need to employ different strategies to make this better. And I think we need to also listen to what the public has to say about what are the aspects of our proposals that may work or may not.
And you had mentioned by the end of the month, I think you'll just answer my question with using my question in your answer. By the end of the month, you're providing the data from the research and the surveys that you've been doing about whether or not this change will go into effect. This isn't a guaranteed thing.
Exactly. So we have a federal
Question while you answer,
yes.
so that it.
You asked about the survey. Alderman Schweitzer asked about the survey information and compile that. Yes, we do have a federal obligation to compile and reach out to the community. And we do normally put those responses up on our website. And then we take a look at that in our obligation to fulfill our public outreach piece, which this may not be a federal requirement for this piece, but we do it. It's just a good practice. So we will analyze that and take a look at where we are along with the balance of our scarcity. So we will fulfill that obligation. And no decision has been met. Literally what the community has asked us to do is do a better job of talking to them in advance of some of these ideas. We're attempting to do that. And so we're in the midst of it.
Thank you. Same thing, I'll just kind of ask my question if you could repeat. We talked about the current communication between Metro and disabled customers and improvements that have been made. And I've heard that improvements have been made, but maybe not to the extent where everyone feels completely comfortable. Can you talk a little bit more about what next steps we should expect?
Sure. So we send out a monthly update, which I send to everybody on the committee. I try to text some of you who I know everybody gets hundreds of emails, so we do that. We had, I think, 3 meetings in the month of April. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you asked about, to reiterate the public meetings. So we are doing that based on, actually, in some of the critique of our public meetings, there was a couple of people who felt like they were a little frustrated with the form and focus of our online meeting. So we look at those criticisms and we try to make some adjustments. So I talked to the staff, Chuck in particular, and our communication staff about adding some public meetings so that we can make some adjustments. You guys are very familiar with the public meeting process. It can be imperfect, and we want to be productive, get through in a reasonable period of time, but also be sure that our ears are open to the majority of the public. So, so we're making some adjustments there. I felt that a lot of the conversations were really great. They included some critiques and criticisms, and that's fine. We need to lean into those and see them as opportunities and make it better.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roach, for being here today. do you anticipate that if you're successful in your hiring efforts, and it does appear you're making improvements there, I want to acknowledge that, do you anticipate that if you're successful in your hiring efforts, the service levels will be able to improve to the level that is being asked by, specifically of Coloride, by Paraquad and other advocates for disabilities?
So it's a one step at a time proposition. We have already, in fact, so this is a tiered system of transit that includes Coloride to the disabled community and the whole community. And as we were able to recover some of the employment initially on Metrolink and Metrobus, we were able actually to restore several of the bus lines. As a matter of fact, I believe there were 17 of those lines that we replaced in January. That meant in frequency. So where it would have been, let's say, a line where we had to move to hourly service, we moved it back to half hour. Okay, so we've already done that step on the Metrobus and Metrolink side. Now we need to, our focused goal is to move to zero denials. Once we get to zero denials, we will need to analyze what is the capacity of the system that involves both employment and rolling stock. Both employment and rolling stock are long-term situations. One of the things that we often hear from our customers is to be sure that we have properly trained employees. And in that, I want to be very specific. It's difficult to drive a 40-foot bus down Grand Avenue. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody can be a qualified Coloride employee. They cannot. We need to go through all of the aspects of training to be sure that our customer base is used adequately. So there is some lag in that employment. So then we will look at then service area. One of the issues was that we did reduce our service area because it was exceeding the federal requirement. We do need to look in a very measured way of whether that is indeed what the community is asking for. Does that hurt the majority for the service of the few? Okay? Some of the areas where we reduced service, primarily in St. Louis County, just because it is not as dense, there's not a large population in there. And we have to look very carefully of whether that efficiency is necessary. For instance, if we soak up a van, a whole van and a driver, does our core service, where there's more density, suffer? So I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'm just saying that it is complex, and it would be improper for me to make that commitment on service area at this time until we have some improvements in our fundamental employment. Here we go.
Thank you, and I do acknowledge that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of logistics here, and I understand how complex this can be and that we have goals to move towards. But if I'm reading this letter correctly, the February operation report reported 7,000 denied rides. So it seems like if we're on the path towards getting zero denials, we're not very far down that path yet. And I want to emphasize that while I do understand the complexity of these systems, at the end of the day, what matters is the service to the people that are out there that need that service. And so, I urge you to continue to be part of this. And I think what I'd rather focus on is how people are involved in the decision making, especially people that are affected by this, who are most dependent on these services. So one of the asks that has been made of you is to have your board meetings open to the public. And I did hear that you said you were looking at possibly having more public meetings. But I want to just kind of point out, I myself have attended a board meeting via Facebook as a member of the public. And I might as well have been watching the meeting on YouTube. I did not find it, to be a place where I could engage, where I could even feel like things were being heard. I find this lack of engagement with the public troublesome because this is an agency that is ultimately tasked with serving the public. Are you able to include public comment at your board meetings in the future?
So yes, we can do that, and we have public comment that is through an online process right now that was changed through the pandemic. My county board chairman, Chair Simmons, just announced and will announce again at the 23rd committee meeting that we will carve out some time at the beginning of meeting to have a little bit more robust public comment during that period of time. And that is an initiative by the Board of Commissioners upon a joint working through how we can get through a very substantial board and committee agenda. So we will be implementing that actually in the June meeting. I do not have all of the exact details. It'll be similar to this. Like, I think it's a 2-minute. We ask the public to try to put their comments together. I have had board members, and will continue. Look, it's very important that we continue this arc of having more public meetings on a staff basis. And Alderman, we're absolutely committed to that. We're committed to showing up to this committee anytime you want. I will answer emails or calls or any way to do that. We do run an organization with almost a $400 million operating profile. We do deliver over 6,500 rides on a call ride basis per week. So it is significant. And so we have to try to be very careful to balance a good, robust conversation with the public. What I always try to talk about when I'm out working on this, and I believe in the public process, is that we will show up, we will listen very carefully, do our best that we can to deliver the service you're asking for. But I do not have a magic wand nor an unlimited budget. So what we try to do is be sure to listen. And I ask the public to also engage in what I think is the 80 to 90% solution. I can listen, we can take care of what are the comments, but I also need to come up with a budget that I'll have to pass in front of you that is within our resources, and that there has to be a balance there. And I respect and very much understand your comments. I think they're apt, and I'm thrilled to say that Chairman Simmons has, and the whole entire board has thought, let's carve out some time at the beginning of our meeting. We're going to start that in June.
Okay.
Thank you. That's very encouraging to hear. And again, I want to emphasize that I understand the complexity here. I think that part of having a trust in a system, and when you have a service that serves the public, which is what this is, it's including people that are affected by those decisions. The slogan that they go by is I'm gonna mess this up. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's not about us without us. Yes, there we go. Nothing about us without us, which I think is very apt. So my final question for you is, what steps are you taking to include people with disabilities in the planning around improvements to Call Ride and any other services that Bi-State offers?
So there's both the planning that we've done historically and also what we're doing moving forward. We are committed to having these robust debates and moving forward and reaching out to the community to be sure that we are moving along like this, so we can see that commitment. Sometimes that means changing your mind about some ideas, and I think me personally, I've been able to do that and have been willing to do that with staff, so we will commit to additional meetings like that. I did talk specifically with my Board of Commissioners. That is their decision to go with that period of public comment at the beginning of their thing, so I can commit on behalf of my Board of Commissioners. We can make that commitment, but we also do have some history of of consulting with the ADA community that sometimes when I've looked into the files, I've found out that we've done so. One of the comments was, for instance, consult us about rolling stock. And we've done that actually within our files, both in 2017 and 2020 through our staff. We've asked for members of the community to review our vehicles. That's a great and important step, and we'll continue to do that. That was done in the past, and we'll do it in the future as we make. And what's really interesting is that members of the community can highlight certain aspects about our rolling stock. The blue vans in particular have specific yellow bollards that were added to them based on an individual who was vision impaired and their critique back in the 2020 review. My point is, I didn't off the top of my head know or remember in a vast organization that we had done those. But we have, but we need to continue to make that commitment is the point. And so I do appreciate both the community's patience with us and your patience with us that that commitment must be made and has to be shown in evidence.
Well, thank you again, and I appreciate you being here today to answer questions. I think we'll hear from the community now, and I really appreciate everybody who's come out in the rain and understand it wasn't the easiest journey here. And just want to end on the note that, you know, engaging the public is one thing, engaging a population that you know that you directly affect and that will be more impacted by these decisions is another thing. And I think that, you know, a general public and openness to the public is great, but an effort to be more accommodating to people, especially people who have no other options to get around, is very important in your decision-making process. So I would encourage you to continue to find ways to involve that community in your discussions around the decisions that you make to improve this service, because again, nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Spencer indicated that she has a follow-up question.
I'll just keep it really quick. In the presentation you mentioned, it was sort of indicated that it was the general public that was asking for the rides, but I'm understanding from a large amount of communication from members of the public who I believe will be testifying really soon here, that the ask was for a 1 to 5 day. It seems to me that if what we're doing is requiring next day requests, we're sort of putting people in a very precarious scenario. It's kind of disabling people to plan for doctor's appointments and other things. We'd almost be better off to, if to kind of, curious if you've looked into saying, okay, maybe just 2 days a week or some way in which people could plan necessary appointments. I would hate to leave a ride to a necessary doctor's appointment to a precarious 24-hour notice situation. I would not feel comfortable doing that. I hate putting other people in that position. So yeah. As far as, I think it's important to allow people to plan for necessary modes of transportation. And if we're disabling that entirely by only allowing for a 4-hour notice, I think it's putting a very precarious situation on people that are already having mobility challenges.
I think I can address that. I have seen the preliminary results from the survey, and I can pretty much guarantee that we're not going to one. Okay, I can guarantee that. Frankly, we got recommendations all over the board. Out of 150 people, maybe 50 people said absolutely no, and everybody else, there were various inputs. There were probably at least 6 different options that were suggested. So we're using that information at this point to decide upon something. We'll probably do it as a pilot to start out. We'll make the community aware of it. We'll have additional hearings about it before we implement it, so there'll be plenty of time. And then we'll work with it for a while, and after 3 to 6 months, if that's not working, we'll try something else. The objective is to improve the service to the extent we can.
I just want to encourage you to allow for a plan in which allows people to plan
Yeah.
for necessary transportation. That's all I have,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
Okay, thank you for the presentation and, the committee for your questions. I think, we have a large group of folks here who braved the elements to, make it here to share their thoughts with us today. So I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome them and allow them the opportunity to speak. And I believe a number of them have registered. And so, Madam Clerk, if you could start calling names, I would appreciate it.
Ms. Lynn McSorley,
Thank you, Caitlin.
Let me try it this way. Okay. I want to thank my 8th Ward Alderman Kara Spencer and Chairperson Owen and the Board of Aldermen for the opportunity to speak today. I started using Color Ride in January 2012 when, due to multiple sclerosis, I was unable to drive. I continue to use my 4-wheel walker on Color Ride Monday through Friday for work and occasional doctor appointments. I had no problem setting reservations on Mondays and Fridays. I stopped working in June 2013. I was able to rely on family and friends to transport me using my walker as needed. I started using a power wheelchair March 30th, 2020. From that day to this, I rely on Color Ride to transport me to doctor appointments and ADA accessible social events. My apartment building has a van with a lift to take residents grocery shopping once a week. As of April 30th, our driver retired. I use my power wheelchair and Color Ride for grocery shopping. A family member or friend takes me using the walker or foldable wheelchair when my destination is non-ADA. I try to set my doctor appointments for late morning. I also add in an extra 45 minutes to hour after the end of the appointment. I've been on the van for 1/2 to 2 hours for the ride home, so I try to grab a quick lunch before I return for the pickup time. I call 4 days in advance to be sure I get my times. I start calling at 7:30 a.m. It can take from 2 to 15 minutes to set my reservation. Since the new phone system in February, when I press number 3, the recording continues. I then hang up and start the process of redialing until I get into the queue. I dial anywhere from 1 to 154 times to get into the queue, then wait on hold for a person to answer. The suggested change to only the day before calling to set a reservation is a bad idea. If I call the day before and cannot schedule a ride, I would have to try and find someone to take me. 1 to 12 hours is not enough time. 12 to 24 hours is not enough time. I would then be forced to cancel and reset doctor appointment for several weeks or months out. If I'm scheduling for an event, the tickets are non-refundable and I would lose the money. Thank you.
Thank you.
next we have Ms. Brenda Cole.
That would be good. Hello, my name is Brenda Cole. I first became acquainted with Bi-State as a little kid. My mom did not know how to drive, and my mother had a disability. And so we went everywhere on the bus. We went to doctor's appointments. All of our medical appointments were in St. Louis, in and around Barnes Hospital. I was born at Barnes Hospital. There are certain things that I am sensitive to as a result of that experience. I remember when we went in and we were the first ones to arrive in the morning and the lights were not on. Additionally, when we left, we stayed until the lights were again turned off and we had not been serviced. My doctor, who helped me with, I guess, issues that came around my birth, was Dr. Helen, can't think of her last name right now. Maybe it'll come to me. Incidentally, that is my senior moment coming in. I hope that all of us live to understand what senior moments are, for us to understand what going through the aging process is. We start at one place when we're born, and maybe we may have improvements or things that are done that can help us to accommodate what we were given at birth to deal with. Others of us don't find out until later what things we may have in store for us. But one thing is very sure: if we live to be a senior citizen, which is what I am and what I take pride in being, if we live to be a senior citizen, then I believe in God. I don't know if that's the blessing that we're supposed to get. I feel that that is the blessing that I received today in coming here and deciding to be here. There are many things that you go through as a person with a disability, and I'd say probably maybe more so than just people who age on and pick up things that happen during the course of living. I think that all of us should consider that if we are lucky, we will have that experience. If we're unlucky, we may not live to be that long, but there are things that we need and accommodations that we may need. You can think that you're okay, and you don't know what happens along the way until you get there, unless you are born and have a disability. I feel some of all of those. My mother had a disability. She was born with it. I knew there were expectations of me as a child to try to accommodate whatever her limitation or shortcoming may have been at the time. And every time I go back to think some of those or think of them, I find myself thinking of a bus experience. Now, a lot of things have gone on with public transportation and the bus. My mother did not drive, and I remember when I saw her she wanted to drive. I saw her try. And what I noticed was that she always put extra effort in. And I think that that is the thing that is salient in making me feel that when I have a stumbling block, then I am just supposed to go further. And I think of my mom, and I'm very glad and grateful that I'm able to remember that experience. I came from parents who definitely took extra steps just in being citizens. They did some things that it took me until, say, maybe about, I guess maybe the last 4 or 5 years to recall things that they did for me as a child to make me understand what my entitlements were. There wasn't a bunch of conversation at home about that. There was living by example. I have other people in my family who, some people married people that had and have disabilities, and they may not be here. I'm talking about, I don't want to go into a whole bunch of it because I know you asked us for 2 or 3 minutes. But, my sister has a husband who's passed away. who was blind. He was blinded as a result of things that happened to him in birth. Well, I know that if I think about my grandmother, I know she was. She had a medical condition that she left this earth with, and it's a condition that affects many people who live in this area. We know from the things that happen and the growth that's taken place at Barnes Jewish Hospital that cancer is a real issue. It's an issue regardless of what you may be born with or born without. I watched my parents, I watched relatives go through different things to go to work, and I know that they were contributors to their lifespan. And so based upon that and the young people that I see, I have a niece, a great niece, who was born deaf, and she can't speak. She thinks she can speak, but she can't. I am saying that we need to be more cognizant of being accommodating and inclusive of people who have issues. We don't have to know necessarily what they are, and they shouldn't have to prove everything to the world. You can see some things, others you don't see. There may be a combination of things. But what I am saying is, I don't see the level of improvement that should be in the public transportation system. Buses that were cut out, lines that were cut out. People need a way to think that they can step out of their situation sometime and go out and just be normal and human as they can be in the situations that they have to deal with every day. And it shouldn't be in terms of having to worry about who's going to rush around or hurry around in order that they don't have to accommodate them. So as far as I'm concerned, this whole thing would make all of us better people if we can understand that we have to take some time and do some things that are inclusive of people. Even the ones that you may not expect, they can have some of the most horrific things that they have to deal with. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Dwayne Gruis, or Gruce.
I'll start timing.
Thank you. My name is Dwayne Gruce. I work for UCP Heartland.
Mr. Gruce, could you come a
I'm
little
sorry.
closer?
Here, put it. I work for UCP Heartland, and my employer has allowed me to change my schedule to be able to get my rides to go to work every day. I'm on the phone every day at 7:30, and usually it takes me about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to get my rides that I need to every day. So my fear is that if it goes to a next day service on Sunday when people want to take off and don't show up for work, there's not going to be enough people to make my reservation for Monday morning. So that's common that a lot of drivers take off on Sunday and a lot of people don't want to work on Sunday. So that's very important. What I would really like to see is that Metro would focus on trying to restore service first. They cut off a bunch of service from people who really need it. And I think some of their trip denial numbers are less because people learn quickly that they can't get the ride. If they can't get the ride early, they don't have a chance. But there's a lot more people out there that could be served by the service if people knew they had an opportunity to get the ride that they needed. So Kansas City, for example, uses a 14-day advance notice service, 1 to 14 days. I think that would be great because it would address the issue of things that come up at the last minute, and it would give people a chance to, like for me, I could do a ride, all my rides 7 days in advance. So that's one call for me for all 7 sets of rides. So I would like to see Metro solve the problem in a way that they serve more people quickly and get the service back online quickly, and not this instrumental system where they piece it together, because there's a lot of people out there that need service that aren't even trying anymore because they already know that they can't get in. And I really work hard to make sure that I get my rides. It's really an effort on my part every day. That's kind of what I have to say.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Itia Umana.
Hold on to that. Chair is right behind you. Microphone on the table in front of you. Right hand. Microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Atefi Umana. I'd like to thank the board for having this hearing and allowing Bi-State Metro to give their perspective so we can get a little bit more understanding, and also the public to give their perspective. And I want to hit on, I think, just about 5 different things. I live in the city. I ride Call a Ride. It helps individuals in the area to have a sense of normalcy in abnormal circumstances oftentimes. So it's important for people to go to church, go to work, go to school, go to the gym, go, various places and so forth. And it's a lifeline, and it's super important for a lot of people. Now, what the citizens are asking for is a robust, comprehensive, technologically advanced, and transparent service. That's it. And it has taken newspaper articles, protests, radio, television, and so forth to get Metro to the table to actually begin in a small way to begin to listen a little bit. It is important to have, an understanding that what we're asking for is not much, just that we are listened to. Mr. Roach was not being honest earlier when he said that we're going to allow for a little more time during the commission meetings. A little more supposes that there's some time that's going on in terms of giving feedback. There's none at this point in time. So again, it's just little things like that that are a little bit annoying. just in general, just be honest. And I think that there's a big difference between, the human dignity that I'm asking for, and what their conceptions of human dignity are in terms of engagement with people. Engagement does not mean that you are setting the agenda. You set it collectively with the individuals so that you make sure that their points are getting across, and that's not what's happening right now. One of the things that is also very disturbing to me is this next day policy. It will not work. It comes from a perspective and point of view from a consultant that they hired, Jeff Segovia, who is supposedly the ADA guru. Just because you call yourself the ADA guru does not mean that you are a guru in any sense. This individual, if you look at some of the YouTube videos, is an individual that looks at things in a very de minimis fashion and looks at what is not possible as opposed to what things are possible, and look at the ADA as a floor, as opposed to as a ceiling instead of the floor as a floor. So there are a lot of very disturbing things that are happening as it relates to Metro. One of them, it still reminds me of is the October cyber attacks, where you had various individuals that missed 6 days of wherever they needed to go as a result of the cyber attack. And it wasn't the cyber attack just in and of itself that was problematic. It was the fact that, as Mr. Roach said earlier, Metro is a $400 organization with many different capacities with that $400 million, rather. And to not have any contingencies, no redundancies, where individuals, when you go to dialysis or when you go to certain treatments, you have to sign a waiver, medical waiver, it's boilerplate, saying that if you miss a day, up to and including death is a possibility. And for this entity to not look at their cancer patients, dialysis patients, have any kind of contingency, it's abysmal. And in any reputable organization, they would be fired immediately. So
we're at time.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you all for allowing us to speak, but we don't want the next day services. We need to make sure that there is transparency. We need to make sure that there are individuals in various organizations that are part of the commission, and we need to be taken seriously in order to make sure that the community is more viable and robust, and individuals are able to get their doctors and work and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Lori Becker.
Where do I go? Over here. Okay, thank you. No, or should I be sitting down or standing up?
Here, I'm going to have you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Lori Becker. I am the CEO of the Starclough Disability Institute. And on behalf of my staff and board and the hundreds of disabled professionals that we serve every year, I want to say that transportation is consistently, by and large, the foremost barrier to employment for people with disabilities in our community, likely nationwide, but in particular here in St. Louis, we have a pretty poor track record of providing equitable access to transportation to all of our citizens. The disparity, the discrimination, the lack of equitable options should be illegal. Denials of trips, whether you're a caller ride user or if your bus route gets cut, those experiences not only impact your bottom line, whether it's you getting to a doctor or getting to work or getting to church or wherever you're going to meet friends. Not only does it directly impact those logistical matters, it impacts the psyche. People feel trapped because they literally are trapped without any ability to move throughout our region. Trapped, isolated, frustrated, angry, and traumatized. This is not only a transportation issue, it's a mental health issue. It's a physical health issue. And I want the elected officials who oversee by state and metro to really understand the ramifications that this has on your citizens. I am a person with a couple of mostly non-visible disabilities myself, both that have prevented me from ever getting a driver's license. And when my only bus route to get to work was cut during the pandemic, I was overwhelmed with angst, and I wasn't able to perform my job. I had to sell my house and move back into a neighborhood where I had better access to public transit. So not everybody relies on Coloride. The public fixed route systems need to be supported and expanded. The federal minimums, as were mentioned earlier, is the floor, and there's nothing legally preventing Metro from expanding beyond the federal limits. So I know other people want to talk as well, but I want to appreciate and amplify the comments about nothing about us without us. Metro not only needs to continue to seek public comments and make every single aspect of those public comment sessions accessible for everyone, but they should also be hiring people with disabilities at all levels through the organization. Not just operators, but every level possible. There's one ADA coordinator who does a great job, but that's one person. They need people at the table who have skin in the game and know what's best. So I encourage the organization to continue to hire within its ranks people with disabilities, because we know what is best for us. So whether it is a 1-day system or a 5-day system, flexibility is key to our community. Some people can plan 7 days in advance. Some people need on-demand service. On-demand service. Just the way non-disabled peers can move about through our community, we deserve the exact same treatment. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Mary Hale.
Thank you.
We just have to wrap up at 4.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Hale, and about 16 years ago, we moved here to St. Louis from another state. At that time, we specifically looked for and bought a home on a main bus route, because where I moved from, I was using paratransit, and I knew how important it would be for me as a deaf-blind person. At that time, it was reliable. I was able to schedule, for example, doctor appointments, and I could call 3 days ahead of time, and I was certain I was going to get my ride back and forth to my doctors and other events as well. But in other words, it was reliable, and I could rely on it. Since then, there's been some changes, as we all know. At this point in time, I specifically want to address the issue of next day reservation. Personally, I feel that is regressing and going backwards. The 3-day option really worked out well. I would rather see it go to a 5-day option even, not add 2 days. Don't remove 2 days. Next day only is going to impact so many people in so many difficult ways. If I cannot get a ride first thing in the morning when I first call, and I have to cancel my doctor appointment, they're going to charge me $25, $30, whatever it is they're going to charge me. Most doctors nowadays, especially specialists, they have the 24 to 48 hours notice that if you don't cancel, outside of that leeway, you're going to get charged. And then, as I heard earlier, we have to reschedule, and that could be months off. There's a shortage of doctor hours as well as everybody else. My main point here is don't regress, please. Let's move forward. Next day is a good option if it's available, but don't make it the only option. That will drastically impact the disabled community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have online.
Do we only have online at this point? So she's welcome to sit anywhere. Madam Clerk, if you could call the next.
We have Patricia Hall.
I don't know where the speakers are.
STL TV, do you see Patricia Hall?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is...
We can't see you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. My name is Patricia Hall. And I'd like to comment on several things. I've been listening throughout. First, let me say that I have seen some improvements. Metro still has a way to go. Let me first preface and say that I am a former employee. I used to be the director of ADA services at Metro, so I understand everything that Metro has been doing. I understand how Metro works and all of that. And Metro has got a lot of things that they need to fix. They've been doing far more than they needed to be doing. So I understand all of that. And so Metro's got a lot of education that they need to be doing. And as a person with a disability, they need to use, they need my experience in there somewhere. So Chuck, I need to get with you on the side and figure out how I can help you with that. As a person who uses this service, I need to help you with some of this. But anyway, I have seen some improvements, but we've got a ways to go. But let me say this. This is a community problem. We're not going to solve this overnight. The buses have to be restored. We need a robust transit system in order to get what we want. Colorado, we need an affordable transit system. We want more out of Colorado than it was designed to do. Metro overextended Colorado, and we want a $2 service to take us everywhere, and we can't do that with the way it was doing it. And another thing that is really important to me is we got to find a way to retain those operators. And I found out that we don't have a true retention plan to retain the operators. And so that concerns me. And I understand that we're not going to probably implement the 3-day scheduling, the 1-day scheduling window, which I think would be horrible from a personal perspective. But like I said, I think Metro's on the right track on some things, but I do think we've got to continue to work to engage the community. I think there's a lot more listening that Metro needs to do, and education that needs to go on so people understand what Metro is and isn't required to do. And then how can we go beyond the ADA requirements in a reasonable, incremental way?
You're at time, Ms. Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have 2 more that just signed up, but next we have Elton Thomas.
Hello, and thanks for letting us speak today. My name is Elton Thomas. I work at the Lighthouse for the Blind, also serve as Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of Paraquad. And I would just like to share Max Starkloff, who founded Paraquad and also Starkloff Disability Institute. He was known for saying something, and I was thinking about that this morning, that the lives of people with disabilities are complex and very difficult to be comprehended by people who do not have disabilities. And I think this is an important statement because here we have Metro making decisions for the disability community, but how involved is the disability community in those decisions? Along with what Pat Hall said, there has been some victories this year with e-fare. Has gotten very positive feedback from my peers. The Colorado driver raises have gotten positive feedback, and the single phone line has gotten positive feedback. But also what Patricia said and others said, that there's room for improvement. I loved Lori's testimony because she touched on how transit is a barrier for people with disabilities. And this morning, I had a conversation with a coworker who works in the office, and she works different hours than other blind people that work at my agency. And she told me she's desperate. She's very desperate because she works different hours. she cannot get a caller ride to work and home every day, and she's spending a small fortune on Uber rides. And she says she's very desperate for someone to fix this, to be able to get her reliable transit to work and home. She's spending a lot of money. It's a financial hardship for her. And she's not alone. There's a lot of people with disabilities, you know, like 7,000 denials. That means we have to dish out cash for Lyft or Uber or a taxi. So that's something that really needs to be considered pretty hard.
You're at time, Mr. Thomas.
Huh?
You're at time.
Oh, my time's up?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we only have the room until 4 p.m. and it
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'll just put something in the chat for you guys to read if that's okay.
Thank you very much. And I do want to reiterate, for anyone that didn't have the opportunity to speak this afternoon, you're more than welcome to email any comments to the Board of Aldermen via the clerk, or you can email me directly as the chair of the committee, and I will make sure that the comments, remarks that you email are shared with the rest of the board. And I know some of the groups that are here, I'll make sure that they have the email addresses necessary to do that. My apologies. I know that we had some pretty tight time boundaries today, and we didn't even get to the second item on the agenda, which was updates relative to the Green Line. So I would appreciate Metro by State coming back to have those discussions as well. But at this point in time, we're at a time boundary. So I do want to express my appreciation to everyone who was able to make it today for the thoughtful remarks and feedback. And, you know, certainly as a committee, we don't have direct oversight of Metro and Bi-State, but we do have a little bit of influence with respect to the budget, which my vice chair is also chair of the budget committee. So, you know, happy to continue the conversations and the listening and learning around the topic. But again, thank you all for your time this afternoon. And if you have any further comments that you'd like to provide, again, feel free to email those to either myself directly or to the clerk of the board so that it can be shared with the committee and the rest of the Board of Aldermen. With that, we don't have any other items on the agenda, so I will entertain, and it looks as though all members were present, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th Ward, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st Ward, that we adjourn. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.